Hi, and welcome to another episode of Hot Takes with me, the Silver Fox. If there is one area out of the many that the SNP have in the last near 17 years of their government failed at, it is public health. Now, this isn't the NHS. We're not talking a health service. We're talking about public health generally. And this can be highlighted by a statistic that is quite literally astonishing. And that is the differential in life expectancy between wealthier areas and poorer areas. It is one of the biggest differences of anywhere in the developed world. Scotland has some almost unique problems that have never been addressed, or at least if they have been addressed, they've been addressed pretty badly. Because not only is it a bad figure in itself, it's a figure that is getting worse. We're going to look at this, and it is a terrible, really, indictment of what the SNP have been doing. Deliberately, it must be deliberate policy for the last 17 years. Because they must have known about this, and they've chosen not to address it. Here goes. So, horrific human cost of SNP failures laid bare, as death rates in Scotland are almost twice as high in poorer areas. It is absolutely shameful, and it's something that can be easily dealt with. It doesn't need a lot of work doing. It certainly doesn't even need a lot of money doing. It's just a case of direction of where you're putting certain funds that already are being spent, and it could make such a small investment in one place and make such a massive difference given how bad these things are. Anyway, drug deaths and alcohol fatalities are also much higher in deprived areas, according to National Records of Scotland, with Scottish Labour's Jackie Baillie blaming the Scottish Government for this. Well, of course, because it's all health and social care. It's all under the bailiwick of the SNP government at the moment. 17 years now. The SNP, being in power for 16, they say 16, it's almost 17 years now, has been blamed for horrendous new statistics which show that the death rates are almost twice as high in Scotland's poorest areas. The figures published by the National Records of Scotland also highlighted the huge discrepancy in alcohol and substance deaths, two issues which have got worse under the nationalists. Massively, incredibly worse, to the point where they're the worst in Europe. Scotland's Population 2022 report also sounded alarm bells in terms of the country's ageing occupants. Now, this one is also a very important number. It's another demographic time bomb. There are now more people aged 65 and over than people aged under 15. This trend mainly driven by the post-war baby boom generation getting older, but also by people living longer and fertility falling. And of course, young people choosing not to raise families in Scotland, given how bad it is. There is a baby drain, which sounds incredibly rude, but there is a baby drain to England from Scotland. This has also been highlighted in other reports, where young people sort of get together and want to raise a family. They don't feel secure in doing so in Scotland. They come south of the border for work mainly, and that's where they raise their family south. And when you get young people leaving like that, of course there's a massive drop in the birth rate, and you end up with a country aging out incredibly quickly because you've got all these outnumbering 65s outnumbering young ones, but the young ones aren't breeding, and so the next day there'll be more people over 65. Every day more people over 65, and that's going to happen for at least another 5, maybe even 10 years, with increasing lifespans generally, but funnily enough not in Scotland. But it is going to be a major demographic problem. Scottish Labour claimed that the figures laid bare the human cost of 16 years of SNP failure to support the NHS and also to tackle poverty. The publication also found that those in the most deprived areas are also a shocking 16 times more likely to die due to substance abuse. Similarly, those in poor regions are also 4.5 times more likely to die from alcohol-specific deaths. The report also found that long-term improvements of life have stalled, and most recently have even started to reverse. So life expectancy in Scotland is actually dropping. So instead of going up and up and up and up and then plateauing, it's actually on the way down now. No other country in the world. Certainly no other advanced country in the world. In a further blow to the SNP, following a previous publication last month, which revealed that life expectancy is decreasing in Scotland, in 2022-23, men living in the country lived to an average age of 76.5, which is actually very low. Females at 80.7, again being low. With this being a decrease by 3 weeks for males and 5.7 weeks for females since 2019-21. Now, admittedly, some of that will be due to COVID. However, 76.5 is still well below the UK average of 81 for men. And so you've got to think, living in Scotland, being Scottish, 5 years off your life. Now, that's obviously the average. It's not for everyone. And if you are someone who is from a slightly wealthier background and you don't abuse things and whatever, and you live quite well and you eat reasonably healthy, you can expect, to live normally. But it's just an awful lot on the other side of that equation, which won't. Scottish Labour Health spokeswoman Jackie Bailey described the report as damning and said it revealed the horrific human cost of 16 years of SNP failure. Another fail. Why is it? All you seem to do is put the words SNP and failure in the same sentence time and time and time again. Everything they do is a failure. She said, from taking their eye off the ball on substances to failing to support our NHS and to tackle poverty, it is clear the people of Scotland are paying the price for SNP incompetence. And put simply, today's horrendous statistics are a result of political decisions made by the SNP. It is simply wrong that those from the most deprived areas are more likely to die early. I mean, to be fair, it always was the case. People from, the poorer backgrounds always did die early. But that differential has exploded massively. She said, only by tackling Scotland's substance abuse crisis head on and rebuilding our NHS can we begin to lessen the shocking levels of inequality that we've grown under the SNP. The Scottish Government has failed to get a grip on both substance and alcohol deaths in Scotland, with the latter overtaking the former as the cause of death in 2022. Fatalities of both substance issues have been rising steadily higher than 1,000 for the last couple of years. It is the worst in Europe, and it's the worst in Europe by quite a margin, it must be said. But then if you had to live in an SNP-run country, it's not surprising so many people want to get off their heads. Over the last decade, the high level of substance-related deaths, the increase in deaths from dementia and Alzheimer's, and a slowdown in the decrease in coronary heart deaths contribute to the stall in life expectancy improvements, the NRS said. It is appalling and damaging, and it isn't getting better. And it is all the fault of the SNP. There is no other way of labelling this. They are overseeing the biggest fall in life expectancy on record simply because of their policies. But they don't care. Anyway, I shall round up and come up, but it's just interesting to see how bad it's getting and how bad it continues to be. And we'll be sitting here next year and saying it's even worse when next year's figures are released. It's going to come to a point where, if you make it to 50, you'll be lucky in some parts. Coming up. So there you are. Not only do you have the lowest life expectancy of Britain, but the differential between rich and poor is the greatest of anywhere in Britain. And indeed, the death rate, if you are the user of substances, is the worst in Europe. And you have one of the lowest life expectancies of any advanced country. This isn't down to disease, it isn't down to COVID or anything like that. This is down to lifestyle choices, and it's down to social issues. Because the lifestyle choice is, let's go and get this, let's go and get drunk, let's go and take these products. Why? Because in society, there's nothing else for these kids to do, nothing else for the older people to do. And so that's what they do. And when you price alcohol so high that it's cheaper to go to a corner boy and buy these products, whatever it is, little pill, whatever he's selling this week, people are going to do that. And of course, there's no quality control or anything, so it's not surprising the deaths are there. But even then, it's just the general malaise on people's lifestyle, of their lifestyle, over a long period of time that ends up killing them. Why is no care going in? Why basically the SNP basically just saying to society, look, we just don't care. Just go and kill yourselves. We don't care. We don't care. We're not willing to put anything in. You know, go and live in your miserable estates with no facilities. No fields, no sports centres, no swimming pools, nothing. There's no opportunity to do things. There's no jobs. It's just poverty and misery, because that is the SNP way. Give them something. Especially kids, especially the young ones. Give them something to do. Give them something to strive for. Give them bloody jobs. And half the problem goes away. But hey, you know, running a country's hard, especially when 99% of your effort is looking at independence. I shall stop there, and it is just with sadness, I think, ultimately with sadness over that, because people are dying unnecessarily, and even the ones who don't die immediately, just wasting their lives, aren't they? Anyway, until next time, stay safe, stay well, look after yourself, eat healthily, don't, screw with your health, and goodbye.